All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of More Content Talk. That's the only show that cuts through the glam, the glitz, and all the bullshit to bring you the truthiest news that we can find. If we ever want to get to a place to where we are constantly evolving and not instead taking steps backward, going forward, and then going backward again, and going forward, and then going backward again, I think that we have to get to a place where we only respect the truth and nothing else, not the tellers of the truth, because that becomes dangerous. And I'll tell you why. If you respect someone who tells the truth, maybe just like once, and then they automatically get your respect because of that, right? It creates this kind of bias inside of you where you're like, oh, well, this is a truth teller. This is a person who only ever tells the truth. And that's wrong. That's wrong because when people get into, say, wanting something politically advantageous to them or socially advantageous to them, like money, then they begin to lie. And sometimes it's unintentional, sometimes it's just misinformation, right? It's like when you grew up, your parents told you it was safe to eat off the floor. The 5 second rule, 3 second rule. There's different variations of this rule, but the truth of the matter is that it is absolutely dangerous to eat off of the floor. You could get food poisoning. Well, not food I mean, because your food is now poisoned in the sense of that, but there's bacteria on the ground and the ground is dirty and it doesn't matter if it's there for a second or not. And the only reason you don't get sick when you eat off of the floor is because you have an immune system that has been trained to kind of fight off certain things. But if you come across that one form of bacteria or what virus or whatever that you just ate off the ground that your immune system is not ready for, you will get sick, and you may not even realize that that's why you got sick because your parents told you, an authority figure, someone you respect, told you that it was safe. And then that's also confirmed by other people that you meet down your peers and, "Oh, yes, I heard this too, I heard this too." You start parenting each other, and you see what's happening here. No one was intentionally trying to misinform you, but they did because they listened to someone they respect tell it to them. So it's fine. 5 second rule, 5 second rule, 5 second rule. We pass this knowledge down through generations. How many people got sick because of that one bad piece of information? And that wasn't even coming from anywhere malicious. But there are times where people will lie to you specifically because they want something in society. They want more money. For example, these people who will come out and lie about abortion. They'll tell lies like, "Oh, well, the evil abortion people are chopping up fetuses and they're putting them inside of Pepsi." This was something that was told to me, which eventually made me become a conservative for a while, that I went back later and found out, well, actually, that was completely made up, and they weren't doing that at all. And so I asked the question, well, why would this person who I respected tell this lie to me? And it was because they specifically want abortion to be illegal, not necessarily because it's immoral. They may view it as immoral, but it's not an objective immorality, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's not like they can point to facts and tell me exactly why this is immoral, because when you get into things like abortion, even if you exclude all the caveats of, like, what about rape? What about incest? What about, I don't know, a child who's gonna be born and then live for only, like, a few seconds and then die? Does that really make a difference? You get into the reality that Christians told everyone for a long time, at least some of them, that God is against abortion, but then you look at the Bible and there's a section that actually has a recipe for abortion in it, a way of getting rid of a fetus, which is actually in the Bible. Why was that information left out? Isn't that pertinent to the discussion? If you're a Christian and you're telling me that abortion is wrong, why does God in the Bible, if you believe God is real, why does God specifically tell a person like, well, this is how you get rid of this, and then there's no punishment for it. It's just never mentioned again, really. So it's not really discouraged and it's not really encouraged either. It's more of this gray area. And if there is that gray area, then it should be legal, at least from that particular standpoint. If you have a hero, you idolize them. And which is interesting, right? Because the Bible also argues against idol worship, but they're your idol. I mean, that's what they are. I got into a discussion with someone recently about Aristotle, and they were making an argument that diverse nations, and this is an argument that Aristotle makes, by the way, diverse nations never work unless they're governed by a king because the people can't get along, and so the king has to kind of force them to get along. And if there's a republic or a democracy, it all falls apart because there's too many diverse opinions. And first of all, I mean, it sounds dumb because we live in America, which is, I would argue, the most successful nation ever. There's never been a nation that has been as successful as America. There's never been a democracy that has been as successful as America. There may never be again. And I know a lot of people like to come down on America and say, well, there's all this is wrong and that is wrong. The reason you're able to so easily identify what's wrong and hyper focus on what's wrong is because the country is successful, is because it works, because there's no one waiting to smack you over the head for expressing an opinion, like China, for example, which is a country that everyone idolizes, which is very weird because China, in the sense of like socially and being a government, is authoritarian. Absolutely, 100%. It's a daddy state, a mommy state, someone coming around telling you what to do all the time. All the people who freaked out about the COVID lockdown here, for example, well, you should have seen what happened in China because I have firsthand information that if you did not comply, you got the shit kicked out of you. There was no discussion or debate about it or like, hey, let me go to McDonald's and film someone. You ever wonder why you don't see any videos from China? Stuff like that. You're going into fucking Starbucks and asking people to white Charlie Kirk on your cup, or you're going to throw a temper tantrum. The reason you get to throw that temper tantrum is because America is a successful democracy, and you can deny it all you want, but that's the reason you get to you get to throw that temper tantrum. You don't see any Chinese videos about people going in and asking to write Charlie Kirk on the cup. They'll smack you upside the head if you do that. That's not allowed. And even if you do get a video, it's going to get confiscated. If you put it on the internet, your account's going to get shut down. The only thing you ever see coming out of China is happy time. Happy time in China. You know, we just built this, we just did this, and it's beautiful. Look at this cake. Isn't that beautiful? Everything's beautiful, right? That's propaganda. The reality is much more harsh and different. And that's why Chinese people continue to migrate to America and be very big proponents of the American system. Is also why they're terrified of anything even remotely like socialist, which is unfortunate because then that means we don't get universal health care and stuff like that for reasons. But the point is that hero worship is always going to lead you down the wrong path. You have to stop having heroes. You don't need them. If you want to do something heroic, then do it. But stop worshiping people. People don't know things. Besides, if you look at Aristotle, Aristotle held some pretty weird beliefs. For example, did you know that Aristotle believed that some people were born to be slaves? He did. Look it up. He called it like natural slaves, people who he compared to animals who take orders very easily. These people should be slaves, he said. It's a good thing. Aristotle thought that eels couldn't reproduce, which is a random, weird thing to think. But he did. He thought that the earth was the center of the universe. He thought that women were monstrous. You hear a name like Aristotle and you think, "Oh, I'm getting ready to hear some real facts here," because there's a certain, air of respect that's given to a man like this. But you're not taking it in the proper context when you think like that, because this is a man who had respect when people didn't know as much as they do now. You know more than Aristotle does now. In his time, in his day, he was an intellectual giant. Today, he is akin to a 5-year-old in terms of knowledge for the most part. Apart from some nice fancy sayings. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there weren't things that Aristotle got right. There are. But what I'm saying is that my son knows more than Aristotle in terms of like, "Oh, I probably shouldn't own people. It's probably not a good idea." You create these kind of, perfect versions of the people that you like, right? And I know this firsthand because when I was younger, I thought my father was perfect. He was out there and he's working all the time and he's, taking us on vacation and he's, commanding respect in the community and he has all these friends. He has a wife, he has kids. This is a man who is, perfect. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. He was an alcoholic. He was a functioning alcoholic. It certainly wasn't perfect, and he ended up, being verbally abusive of his family, and, in later life, his friends weren't around as much, probably because he was verbally abusive of them too. He's quick to anger. He's a very angry man. You want that guy to be good. You see what you kinda get what I'm getting at here? You want these people to be perfect because you want to look up to someone who's better than you. You're always thinking, "There are people who are better than me out there, and I have to look up to these people so that I can be more like them, because if I don't have that, then what am I supposed to do? I don't know what to do." And that's a legitimate concern that you have there, like, it's scary to think that maybe you just have to look inward sometimes and you have to think and you have to research and you have to go around and look at several different perspectives before you get the knowledge. And maybe even then you don't have the knowledge. Listen, that can be very terrifying to just know that it's really up to you to make a decision. It can be terrifying, but that's the way it has to be. Because if you don't question people, and I mean to say this in a way, not like there's this notion that you should question everything, and I'm not a proponent of that. There are some things that have been proven to be true, and we need to accept that knowledge, because if we don't, then we create a dumber world. I'm not talking about that, but if someone comes along like Moses, right, and says, "I have these commandments, and this is what's gonna make society better," and that's the end of it, someone has to question that guy. They just do. Because turns out, Christianity has been around and Judaism, they've been around for centuries now. People have been following these religions, you know. We're not at a perfect society. We're not in a utopia by any means. And yeah, of course, like a proponent of that will say, well, because that's not you're not following the rules. That's the reason, right? Perhaps. Or maybe the rules just ain't that great. Maybe they don't coincide with what it is to be human, and maybe life is more complicated than there just being a set of rules. Maybe rules are meant to be broken and bended and stretched, and we're supposed to find deeper levels of meaning from these rules. We're supposed to analyze them and say, hey, you know what? I don't know if this is right. Let's look at this again. Because If it's as simple as just reading rules in a book, then why aren't more people responding to these rules in a positive manner? If it's supposed to make your life easier, then why doesn't it? It's easy to tell someone not to steal when you're making $1,000,000 a year, okay? It just is. It is so easy to sit there when you're collecting your pension and, your retirement and your Social Security checks and all this stuff. You got all this wonderful stuff. And you're living in a house and even talking about cutting your property taxes, all this stuff that is just being given to you. It's easy to say, "Thou shalt not steal." It's easy for you. If a guy is broke and he doesn't even have money to get to his job, to better himself, to put him in a position where he can make himself better, that guy's gonna think about stealing. He may not do it, but he's gonna think about it. And then once you start thinking about it, it becomes easier to do it, you see? Once you're in that situation that makes you able and capable of doing these things, you might do them. This is the point. It's not just about rules. You need to have a society that can make it so that people can actually follow those rules realistically. And then it gets even more complicated because let's say you are making a good amount of money a year and you can afford the necessities you need, then you have desires, you have wants. People call this greed. But, I struggle with this concept greed because if you have something and I want it, right? And I say, you know what? I'm not going to steal. Okay. I don't want to steal from this person, but I still want this thing. Is that bad? Is it bad to see someone who has like a really nice car, right? You say, "Man, I love that car." But I don't wanna steal from that guy. That would be, bad. It would disrupt the social contract. But I still want the car. Is that greed? I don't know. Should I just be happy with the fact that I'm riding around in a '96 Toyota for the rest of my life? Is that and then you get into things like, well, how does that motivate you to get up in the morning, right? I don't know. If you're not thinking that you can do better. So we say greed is bad. I don't know. Then on the other end of the spectrum, you have people who say, that, "No, actually, greed's good because it motivates you to get that car." Maybe that's wrong too. But you can't even begin to have the discussion if your heroes are all people in the Bible because that's where the discussion is. No, I said greed is bad. That's it. Don't talk about it anymore. See what I mean? And there's no discussion to have. And you fall into this state where you're just kind of this automaton who just like, people will ask you challenging questions about your heroes. It does not compute. I'm sorry, I can't go down that road. I have this set of values that I follow, and I'm going to follow it, and that's the end of it. But it's not the end of it. There's a whole life, and there's all kinds of different people out there, and different books, and different rules that you haven't even conceptualized yet because you put yourself in this cocoon and you said, I'm not going to come out ever. You need to stop the hero worship. It's one of the reasons we have Trumpism is because of hero worship. He's a hero to MAGA. He's their hero. He's making America great again. Is he really? You can't even have the discussion because if you do, then they're gonna say, "Well, you're evil and you're part of the liberal elite." I'm part of the liberal elite. I had no idea. Wow. When do I get my liberal elite card? When are they gonna start inviting me to fancy parties? When do I, get to go to the Oscars and all this stuff? I don't know. I don't know what the term elite means. They call you an elitist. What does that even mean? No idea. You talking about intellectual elite in the sense I've been to college? I guess. Elite in the sense of what? Like I've been in some Shakespeare plays and worked at some Shakespeare festivals and stuff? I guess. But I'm not pulling in all kinds of money. I'm not rich. So what are you talking about? What does that even mean? I don't know. I heard it on InfoWars, so I'm calling you an elitist. Yeah. Alex Jones is my hero. Why do we need heroes? What do we need them for? What purpose does a hero serve outside of giving you information? Because if it's just information, if it's just sayings and colloquialisms and things like this, I can get that on the internet. I don't need or a book. I don't need a hero. And if I don't have a hero, I can start to judge everything much more clearly, and I can get down to the nitty-gritty, say, "Well, I agree with a little bit of what you said, but I don't agree with most of it. I agree with most of what you said, I don't agree with this part." For me, Bill Maher is a great example. This is a guy who says things that I believe, right? I believe what's a good example of something Bill Maher says? That, Trump is bad. Like, let's just put it on, like, very basic thing that, obviously it gets more complicated than that, and he has reasons, and it has to do with economics and all these things. But I agree with Bill Maher. Yes, I do not care for Trump. I don't agree with Bill Maher when he starts going off on things like, "Oh, well, people liberals need to stop being mad at Trumpers and have Thanksgiving dinner with them again." I don't believe that. I don't think I have to have Thanksgiving dinner with anyone. In fact, these days, I don't really go home for the holidays at all because it's boring to me. Number 1, bored. And number 2, it's one day a year that I get to do whatever the fuck I want to do. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take my family. We're gonna go out to eat. I don't want to cook. I don't want to clean. I don't want to, have my in-laws or whoever tell me that I'm not good enough or I'm not doing the right thing or I'm not believing the right thing. I want to hear it. So I decide, hey, I'm gonna go to this Thanksgiving brunch and I'm gonna enjoy myself. I'm gonna have a ball. I'm gonna tell some jokes. I'm gonna have some laughs. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna make merry. That's gonna be Thanksgiving. I'm not hurting anyone by doing that. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm hurting someone's feelings. But since when do we care about feelings in this country? For years, it's been fuck your feelings. Let's go with the facts. That's what it's been. Conservatives taught us that. Remember? It wasn't the liberal elite who said that. The liberal elite were trying to argue for, hey, well, everyone get along. Let's all get along. That was their thing. And it was the conservatives who rejected that, not the left. But now we have to make merry with them. We have to make nice with them. It's always us. This is my point. That's something that goes on with liberals is they always have to go and try to make nice with people who really don't like them very much at all. And who really, if they're being honest, they don't like either. And this is the first time in society I've ever seen liberals reject this notion and say, okay, we're not going to do this for once. That's enough. And then guys like Bill Maher come along and say, well, you can't do that. Why not? Can't I do that? People do it to me. When I was involved with, Black Lives Matter and getting rid of police brutality and all these things, and people said, "Fuck your feelings. I don't care about that guy, that black guy who got killed." We coulda had a mutual respect if it had been reciprocated, the right and the left. We could have had this thing that Bill Maher wants, but it was widely rejected by the right. They don't want it. What they wanna do is they want you to come over to their house for Thanksgiving, they want you to sit there, and they wanna lecture you on how they're right about everything. I'm not interested. And now I'm the bad person. Whatever. That's fine. I will be the bad person. If you need someone to point your finger at and say, "You're bad," go ahead. I'll be bad. But it's not gonna ruin my Thanksgiving meal. You're not gonna make me feel guilty. I don't feel guilty about it. I have a clear conscience about it. Not hanging around with people who bore me, people who make me angry, people who just get under my skin. They don't rub me the right way because they're always judging. They're always talking about your career isn't right. This isn't right. That's not right. That's not right either. I don't like that either. Go find someone else to complain about. That's not what you're supposed to do to people that you supposedly love. Well, that's not how love works. That's not what my hero told me. I don't give a shit about your hero, my guy. Call it what you wanna call it. It's careless, it's whatever. But you can't always be the person who is taking advice, right? Who is always saying, "Well, I will be the bigger person in this scenario." You can't always be that person all the time. It takes its toll. And, even as I'm talking about this, I feel this weight being lifted off my shoulder. Like, finally, I don't have to be the bigger person anymore. I don't want to be the bigger person anymore. That's hero advice. Be the bigger person, be better, do better. If the It's tiring just thinking about it. If the weight of that is always on you, if it's always you're the one who has to be the bigger person, you're the one who has to be better, you're exhausted. The weight of it all is exhausting. It makes you wanna lie down and take a nap, for crying out loud. I could take a nap after talking about all this stuff. So I said, "No, I'm not gonna be the bigger person. I'm gonna think what I wanna think and do what I wanna do, and if you like it, and you can roll along with me, and we can have a good time, and if you don't like it, then get the fuck out of my face." When I was a conservative, I used to say, "Well, sorry if it hurts your feelings." And I still say the same thing. I think that, in a sense, that lesson that conservatism taught us was a good idea. You're absolutely right. Why should I care if you think, um, you know, I'm a demon because I support abortion? Sorry I hurt your feelings. Why should I care if, you get mad at me because, I'm half black and I'm with a white woman? Huh? Sorry I hurt your feelings, I guess. Why should I care if you get upset when I don't come over to your house for Thanksgiving? Sorry I hurt your feelings. Here's a tissue. Sometimes things have a way of coming back and biting you in the ass. And sometimes I think that's the best option, is to just let it bite someone in the ass. Don't come around trying to save them from themselves all the time. Let them deal with the consequences of their actions, and then maybe they'll feel motivated to change. Maybe they, for once, not you and not me, will feel motivated to do better, to be a bigger person. And until that time comes, they can eat by themselves on Thanksgiving. All right, everyone. I hope you have a phenomenal day, evening, afternoon, fiesta, siesta, downtime, chill time, lunchtime, party time. And remember, when life gets you down, you can always laugh at something else. Happy Thanksgiving, folks.